And Rashford, I think his biggest job now is to fit into that, because Barcelona had incredible fluidity and rhythm in their attack, and Rashford's kind of got to jump aboard a group with an incredible amount of chemistry and fit right in.
How many teams around Europe would love to have the attacking players that both of these two have got, Barcelona and Chelsea. In terms of most goals scored in Europe last season among teams in Europe's top 5 leagues, and this is all competitions, Barcelona led the way by quite some distance, 174 in total. PSG in Ligue 1 second and 168. Bayern Munich 154, and then Real Madrid behind that at 148. So Chelsea not on that list. And we're not talking here, are we, Chris, about do we compare Barcelona versus Chelsea in terms of their attacking players, who's better? Because, you know, clearly the answer is Barcelona, and the results and the goals prove that. But what we're talking about is, if you compare the two and what the managers have got at their disposal, if there were injuries to either of them, who's got more in reserve? Who's got a better surplus? Let's start by talking about the two coaches. As we go into the season, Enzo Maresca and Hansi Flick, how happy do you think that both of them are with their lot going into the season?
I think Enzo Maresca will probably be pleased with sort of the raw amount of talent, but I still think that they have work to do to thin the herd a little bit, because they have a lot of players that you would think will go at some point, whether that's Nico Jackson, having brought in Joao Pedro and Liam Delap as center forward options, whether maybe it's Pedro Neto, having just brought in Jamie Gittins, and they want to bring in Alejandro Garnacho reportedly as well. So I think he still has work to do to figure out what that rotation is. I will say he handled this job very well last season. He decided, these are my 21, these are my 22 players. We'll have some academy kids in rotation when we play in the Conference League, but I know what I want my squad to be in the midst of all this chaos, but the ownership keeps providing him with more chaos to deal with. So I still think the dust will settle, but he will be incredibly pleased and will have a lot to study over the course of preseason, and a lot to have learned from the Club World Cup about what he likes about this incredible group of attacking players.
Because they have made some signings. Liam Delap's come in, Jamie Gittins as well. This is a team, as you mentioned there, that the owners keep on signing player after player after player. Do you think that the men who've come in through the door have improved this side, that they are considerably better than what we saw in that Conference League final, for example, last season?
To be determined. To be determined. I think certainly up front. I think whether it's Joao Pedro or whether it's Liam Delap up front, they have gotten a lot better in that center forward position, without doubt for me. Obviously, Cole Palmer will stay in that number 10 role. And then we got to see if they go for one of these other wing players. Last year, realistically, they decided on Madueke and Sancho as kind of being that main duo. So then it became Pedro Neto in the second half of the season. But if it is to be Pedro, if it's to be Neto and Gittins, or Neto, or even Estevao, who we see on the screen here as such a young player, I think we don't know yet, because they have not been in the Chelsea system. There is that level of cohesion that I think is a big part of this. And I think in the overall, Chelsea have found it harder to come across chances and that sort of regular production of attacking play if we are to compare them to Barcelona. I think their style is a little bit more based in midfield. It's more based on rest organization and possession and not leaving yourselves vulnerable. And it does not leave a lot of room for attackers to go. And so I think that right now, I would assess it as a lateral move, having gone from, let's say, a wing combination of Sancho, Neto, and Madueke to the current crop of Gittins, Neto, Estevao, whoever you want to throw in there as those wide options.
With regards to Barcelona, we've talked a couple of times on the show in the last week or so about the fact that Marcus Rashford gives them a bit of a new dimension going forward, and it could be a really great signing both for the player and to reinvent his career over in La Liga and playing alongside all these great players for Barcelona, but also what that offers them in terms of this huge amount of attacking players that they've got. What do you think is the biggest thing that he brings to this side? We don't know whether he's going to be starting all that much, at least at the start of the season, but what element does he give to the team, you know, whether he's starting or coming off the bench?
I think the biggest thing that he provides in the current group, obviously, there's a little bit of a view towards what happens when Lewandowski eventually goes. He's 36. He produced an incredibly high level last year. He might produce incredibly well this year and the year after that, but at some point it's going to come to an end. I think what Rashford provides is an obvious fill-in at all three positions. If Yamal has to come off for whatever reason, Rashford can play down the right. If Raphinha has to come off down the left, he can come in at that position, and the same thing at center forward. And I think what he brings is a little bit more of, I think, a mind towards shooting from a player in a wide position. I think Yamal certainly shoots plenty, has that left-footed curler, but I think the way that Rashford approaches the game and attacks defenses, it's about how do I get into a good shooting position? Whereas I think Yamal is all about the creative and all about figuring out what's the best solution. Do I take someone to the byline and hook a little ball in? Do I cut inside and maybe curl one in? Am I trying to play combination play? Whereas Rashford is all about directly dribbling at defenders and creating a window to shoot. So I think he is a different profile of player compared to Raphinha, who's all action defensively and can do a bit of everything. And especially coming in off that left, as a left-footed player, you don't see that, frankly, very often anymore. But good crossover ball, gets into good positions. There's that creativity and that flow. And Rashford, I think his biggest job now is to fit into that, because Barcelona had incredible fluidity and rhythm in their attack. And Rashford's kind of got to jump aboard a group with an incredible amount of chemistry and fit right in. And we've seen that at times in this preseason. So I just think he brings a different profile to what was already there before.
Is there any way that he plays all four of them? Lewandowski right as that striker, Raphinha and Yamal either side, and Rashford just behind him, and then you just have sort of Pedri sitting and cleaning up behind him.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. If you really want to, I think we'll see that in moments of desperation for sure, where it's 50 minutes to play, they're down a goal, just throw them all out there. I don't know how it fits. So I think if you're to try and wedge all those players in from the start, I think you are creating a little bit of an imbalance. You wonder who is kind of the most 10-friendly, and you might say it's Rashford as a second striker. I think Yamal has every talent in the world to play as a number 10, and maybe in the past he would have played as a number 10, but I think Messi has kind of formed this mold of you play your left-footed creators off the right and kind of have them come inside. You have the overlapping as the option, and you still get into those number 10 kind of positions. So I think you can. I don't know if, especially given how good their midfield is too, that it would make sense. And by the way, we talk about this attack. The Barcelona midfield is basically adding 2 new players, and Marc Casado and Marc Bernal, because of all the injuries they dealt with last season. So with Olmo already there, with Pedri already there, with Gavi already there, De Jong obviously holding the base of midfield. They're stacked in midfield as well.
So let's answer the question. Who do we think's got more in surplus, in reserve, in terms of the attacking players, Barcelona or Chelsea?
It's so interesting to compare that we picked these 2 clubs to compare, because Barcelona are the side struggling for resource and Chelsea are the side seemingly with a limitless well of it. And so I think if we're just saying, right now, Chelsea on their roster have 11 or 12 players that can play in these positions. Yes, they have more in reserve, but whose players, individual players as a collective, and having proven it before, I still would take Barcelona, even though there are, in raw numbers, fewer of them. One player we didn't mention, by the way, who was on the graphic, I think it's worth shouting out, is Fermin Lopez, because he didn't have a nailed-on starting place in the team, but he was still an incredibly useful player in that combination play, shooting from long distance, and I think deserves a shout. It's another player that's sort of in that reserve of attacking talent for Barca.
I think for me it's going to be intriguing to see how Chelsea get on in the Champions League this season. Could genuinely go one or 2 ways. They bomb out in the league phase or perform really well and be one of those dark horses to go a long way